Hello, I'm Daniela. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to embroider the buttonhole stitch, which many people know of as a blanket stitch, but it's just stitched close together, so no fabric shows from behind the stitches. It's a very versatile stitch because it's very functional as well as decorative. It's beautiful for lines and curves, so it's great for this quilt block. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I embroider the stitch and then how I use it on my quilt block. I love the rich texture. To me, it's a cross between a blanket stitch and a satin stitch. It's a beautiful stitch and it gives a raised edge. And depending on the embroidery floss that you use, you can get a beautiful sheen to your finished stitch. So let me show you how I do it. So we're going to create the buttonhole stitch. Now this is the blanket stitch. It's the same stitch, but instead of keeping the stitches far apart like they are in the blanket stitch, for a buttonhole stitch you keep them up close together. Think of it like a satin stitch or a cross between a satin stitch and a blanket stitch. So to create that, I need two lines. So now to stitch it, I'm going to come up on one line, the bottom line here, and I'm going to go diagonally up top. Now for a blanket stitch, I would come maybe over here or somewhere. But for the buttonhole stitch, I want to keep it very close together. So I'm only going to go maybe a needle's width apart. Can even go less than that. And then I'm going to take my needle and stitch it down right before that line. I want to make sure that my thread goes under that needle. And I'm pulling that taut. Now for my next stitch, I'm going to come right next to that upper stitch. Again, I'm going to come down with my needle, making sure it goes underneath my thread, and pull it up. And you can start to see how nice and tight that is looking. I'll come over here and do a few more. Stitching up, coming down, making sure it goes under my thread, and pulling it across. And it's a beautiful stitch. I find it very helpful to think in terms of the lines where I want all my stitches to go. So I just have those two lines, and those are the only two I need to be concerned with. And I'll just continue this the length of the piece that I want it to go. And when I'm ready to end it, I'll just bring my thread down. I'll just bring my needle down and knot it. And I have a beautiful stitch, almost like a satin stitch, but it's got this beautiful little edge. So now to create it on this piece, I want to choose a small little area to stitch it. And I'm going to choose just this little area from here to here. I chose to use this blue thread. This 336. It's kind of like a navy, but not quite as dark as a navy, and it kind of pulls this color, and I like the way it's pulling it towards the right. Because I'll need my two lines, I'll create a line right down here, just barely off the piece of fabric, and my top stitch will be up here, just above that line that I top stitched. I've already knotted my thread, so I'll come in here and bring my thread and needle up right at that end point. So I'll come straight up through that end point, and I'm keeping my thread at the bottom here. I'll bring my needle up and just barely to that area that I already came in, keeping my thread underneath, and I have my first stitch. Bring my needle again, right next to it, come down right next to it, keeping my thread at the base and pulling my stitch. I'll show you one more. Bring my needle up top, right to the base, and complete it. And now I'll complete the remainder of the path. So this is the stitch when it's complete, and it's just as beautiful on the back as it is on the front. It's a very nice stitch. So that's how I embroider the buttonhole stitch, and that's how I use it on my quilt block. It's a beautiful stitch. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. And if you'd like to see more behind the scenes footage from this series, as well as access to a slow stitching library, please consider becoming a member of my channel. The link is in the show notes. Thanks for joining me today.